Let's get right into it. Today, we're undertaking an objective historical briefing on the timeline of the September 11 attacks and the profound geopolitical shifts that followed. We're going to map out exactly how an ordinary Tuesday morning completely reshaped global policy and defense strategies for decades to come. Looking at our agenda, you'll see we've structured this chronologically. We'll start with the morning of September 11, move right into the coordinated attacks, pivot to the massive geopolitical response, and finally, look at the resilience and remembrance that followed. So let's jump right into Section 1, the morning of September 11. We're looking at a timeline of those initial events to see how an ordinary day rapidly transformed into a major historical inflection point. This timeline really highlights the sheer, terrifying speed of the crisis. At 8:46 a.m., a commercial airplane struck the North Tower in New York City. Now, at that exact moment, a lot of people initially thought it was just a tragic accident, but just 17 minutes later, a second plane hit the South Tower. That 17-minute window, that's what confirmed this was absolutely no accident. It was a coordinated attack. In the hours that followed, the scope of the crisis widened drastically, with crashes at the Pentagon and in Shanksville. The speed at which the world changed that morning is just staggering, and it laid the immediate groundwork for an unprecedented global response. Moving on to Section 2, the coordinated attacks. With the timeline established, we need to map out the physical reality and widespread devastation of what happened next. The immediate impact spanned multiple geographically dispersed locations. Within a matter of hours, both World Trade Center towers collapsed, causing massive destruction and chaos. Down in Arlington, Virginia, a hijacked plane crashed right into the Pentagon, severely damaging the headquarters of the U.S. military. And then there was a fourth hijacked plane, believed to be headed for Washington, D.C. That one crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And it's important to note, this outcome happened specifically because the passengers on board bravely fought back and attempted to regain control from the hijackers. Now, the sheer human toll here is absolutely heartbreaking. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost on that single day. This staggering figure includes office workers who were just starting their morning, first responders rushing in to help, and the passengers aboard all four commercial planes. It was a profound, concentrated loss of life, and it directly catalyzed the swift and aggressive global events that we're going to analyze next. That brings us to Section 3, the geopolitical response. Here, we'll look objectively at the actors involved and the massive reorientation of U.S. global policy that immediately followed. To understand this geopolitical shift, we first have to identify the catalyst. The perpetrators were very quickly identified as al-Qaeda, which was an extremist group operating under the leadership of Osama bin Laden. They were the ones responsible for carrying out these coordinated attacks across New York, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Identifying a non-state actor as the perpetrator of such a massive attack was the foundational step in building a completely new kind of national defense strategy. Because the attack was carried out by an extremist group rather than a traditional nation-state, the United States essentially executed a systemic reorientation of its defense posture. The immediate reaction was to launch a sweeping, global campaign against terrorism. We're not talking about a localized response or standard diplomatic sanctions here. This was an unprecedented, structural shift in international relations, entirely focused on dismantling extremist networks across borders. Consequently, this new global campaign against terrorism wasn't just some policy doctrine on paper. It directly precipitated long-term U.S. military involvement in nations like Afghanistan. The geopolitical impact of that ordinary Tuesday morning literally meant the U.S. committed to a protracted military and strategic presence overseas. It entirely redefined the global landscape and defense priorities for decades. Finally, let's turn to Section 4, Resilience and Remembrance. Let's observe the domestic aftermath, focusing on the immediate civilian response and how the nation memorializes the event today. Amidst all the tragedy of that day, some truly extraordinary stories of unity emerged. First responders famously rushed directly into those collapsing buildings, risking everything to save lives. Ordinary citizens helped complete strangers escape danger. Nationwide, we saw these incredible, immediate efforts to donate blood, and communities across the country rallied together to support the victims' families. That initial shock was almost instantly met with a massive wave of collective civilian action. And that legacy of unity still carries on today. The physical site where the World Trade Center towers once stood now serves as the National September 11 Memorial and Museum. It's a permanent fixture honoring those we lost. But the remembrance isn't just physical. Every single year, Americans observe moments of silence, making sure that the events of that day and the people who were lost are never forgotten. I want to leave you with this really profound quote from our source material about the dual legacy of the day. September 11 remains a powerful reminder of both vulnerability and resilience, a day marked by tragedy but also by extraordinary human courage. I think that encapsulates our briefing perfectly. We've looked at a timeline of immense vulnerability, the vast geopolitical shifts that sought to address it, and the remarkable human courage that rose to meet it. It really invites us to reflect on how such deep vulnerability can exist right alongside extraordinary human resilience. Thanks for joining me for this briefing. Keep seeking to understand the events that shape our world, and we'll see you next time.